At the moment.
Morning, everyone. 6:05. What a day it was in the West Coast Eagles history and that of Adam Simpson. Morning, it's 19 degrees is our forecast today. It's currently 15. Thanks to Sonos Multi-Room Listening, Wireless Home Theatre and more in the Toolkit Depot studio. And we're going to be dissecting what took place yesterday, what's taken place and where to now for the football club. Shannon Hearn, Premiership captain, will join us. Of course, the man who held the Premiership Cup aloft with Adam Simpson. Shortly, we'll be chatting with Guy McKenna, who's been in this space before, been sacked as a coach. He will join us. Of course, he's still got West Coast Eagles blood running through his veins. Chris Waterman, of course, a Premiership player and, of course, champion of Jake. He'll give us that type of perspective. And Mark Duffield will join us in the last half hour as well. So plenty to dissect. Scotty Cummings is here. What a day.
It was massive. Good morning. And firstly, I know it didn't bring you any joy. I know that, but congratulations to you, mate. You were the one that broke it across the country. You were the first one. So well done to you there. But I know you're not standing on the dais with your arms in the air, but because it wasn't the greatest of news to break. But you were the first one, so well done to you. A good bit of old school journalism just coming through there, guys.
Thank you. Yeah, you don't get any joy out of that. And look, we declare our hand here, and I declare my hand. I would consider myself a confidant with Adam, and it was a tough day for everybody, but I thought he handled himself so beautifully yesterday. I thought the fact is he wore his West Coast Eagles polo, which a lot of sack coaches don't do.
Yeah.
He wore that polo. He spoke about we, the club, his love of Perth, his love of the club, what it's meant for his family, that he'd sit in the stands and watch in the future. We're going to hear a lot of his grabs from yesterday. I thought, hats off to him. It's been a difficult time, but I think there's some genuine relief inside there. And I think when you sit back and look back, and there's a lot of people being critical of Adam Simpson, even those people this morning are probably thinking to themselves, yeah, it was time, but gee, he was a damn fine coach when he had all available, he was coaching well, and the club was running smoothly.
Not surprised one iota that he handled himself the way he handled himself yesterday. He's professional, he's level-headed, it's not about him, and I thought he absolutely handled himself a treat, exactly what I expected. I don't think it was the most beautifully handled press conference. I would have thought certain things would have been organised before they went out. But anyway, it is what it is. It's a tough day for everybody. It's a tough day for Pikey.
It was a tough day as a CEO. Correct.
And it's hard to deliver those things perfectly. But well done to Simo, and hopefully now him and his family can have a little bit of a spell and a break from the attention of it in the next couple of days when it dies down, because as he made mention during the presser too, which I'm sure we'll play, it takes its toll on family, and they are human beings. They're all people.
They were all there yesterday, and he gave them all a hug and a high five.
He gave them a clip along the way too, didn't he? He just kept them all honest.
They actually looked, and again, it was only one shot that I saw, they actually looked relieved. They looked like a really happy group.
Yeah.
I think they thought, Dad's out of the hot fire now. He can step away.
And I think that's just the way Simo is as a human being. Now, I've got no idea what he's like as a father, but when you look at the person, you'd think that everything's pretty calm and pretty measured, and there's perspective on everything. At the end of the day, this is a job.
I think he's last in the list of
priority in the family.
I think he's on the bottom of the list. I think he's the Jack Darling of the family. He's the whipping boy of the family.
He's the fifth Beatle.
So I want to touch on this. I thought it was let's understand the enormity of the day and the pressure on everyone at the footy club. Don Pike is the CEO. He's only fresh into the job. So he's involved in part of that, and he had the conversation with Adam Simpson the day before. It was then presented to the board about would the board ratify him going forward and lock away the next year. That wasn't agreed upon. That's why they reached the decision. I thought this was a really clumsy way to start the press conference. Don Pike opening statement, and I just didn't think it was done. It was raw. It was too raw for me. Have a listen.
Obviously, we know why we're here, so I won't go through the detail. What to say about Adam as coach of a footy club? I first met Adam in 2014 as a energetic, passionate coach coming across to take the club for the first time. I was an old retired player / wannabe coach and joined Simo's panel. in his first year, and I found this high energy guy with a passion for teaching and a real strategic lens for the game, and that hasn't changed over his time. Within 2 years, the side have made a grand final. Within 5 years, they've won a grand final, and he sits here today as one of only 3 men that have coached our team, our club, to have a premiership success.
He righted the ship a little bit, but to walk into a press conference, we know why we're here. I just don't think that's how you start a press conference when you're announcing a coach is going.
Needed to start with, ladies and gentlemen, we're here to announce the mutual decision of parting of ways between our coach Adam and the West Coast Eagles Football Club. Then, let's talk about the impact that Adam's had on our club.
Correct. And the awkward moment, and we'll deal with this right now. This is the awkward moment when Don and I was trying to work out whether they'd had this discussion, but Adam hadn't decided, or whether they have not had this discussion, or whether the Eagles have had the discussion with Simo's manager and it hadn't been conveyed. But it was
surely not.
It was a very awkward moment. It's been well documented, but have a listen.
We've requested that Adam to consider coaching the side for one final time this weekend. So, as much as today is the announcement of the finish, we'd love Adam to coach one more time come the weekend. Obviously, it's a significant event this weekend with Liam Ryan's 100th. I think it's fair to say that for people in the room, Liam's reached 100 games, which is a fantastic achievement. But for the man next to me, maybe he wouldn't have seen the best of Liam Ryan and seen what he's been able to do on the field. With that said, I'll hand over to Adam. Thanks very much.
Yeah, we haven't made that call just yet, Pikey, if I was going to coach this week, but
we'd like you to.
Yeah, thanks, mate.
Yeah, well handled. I would have thought that's one of the very first, not the very first things. You have that sorted before you go out there, because at the end of the day, even if Pikey says, we want you to coach one more game, and Simo says, let me sit on it, the question gets asked during the presser, are you having a farewell game, Adam? I'm still deciding. I'm going through all the information at the moment. I'm trying to filter everything that's happening right now. I'll make a call in the next 24 hours. But you don't go out there without the CEO knowing and the coach knowing if he's going to coach one more time. That conversation had to have happened before.
Some clumsy moments yesterday, but end of the day, the overarching is the decision's been made. Don will learn from it. He was asked by Mark Duffield whether he's going to put his hat in the ring to be the coach, and he sort of dismissed it.
Oi, Simo said it too. Don't worry about that. Everyone scoffed at us when we said the best candidate to take him over is Pikey right now. Simo actually looked at him during the presser and said, maybe you could be the interim coach right now. And I'm not sure whether that's having a half a crack at Pikey or it's like, well, you're a coach and you're a good one. Maybe you have one. Hey, again, that's another groundbreaking story that we broke on Monday or Tuesday.
That's why we're the number one sports show in town. Guy McKenna, he's, of course, a West Coast Eagles legend and a man who's been in the coaching hot seat at the Gold Coast Suns, a man who's still passionate West Coast and had a lot to say. And I'm sure I think he grew up a North Melbourne fan, so he would be aware of Adam Simpson and what he's done for footy as a player and a coach. And he's been in this hot seat before, and he's good mates with Don Pike. So you've got a foot in every camp.
Oh,
good morning.
Like an octopus almost. Although legs, not arms. It was obviously a big day for the club, and also a big day for Simo. And I think you fellas touched on that family issue. I heard your intro and I'm talking about that, and I've been a little bit different. I think the club and Johnny Witherow at the time, the chairman, when I got the Tijuana, it was later. It was in October, and it was after the season. So I never had to go through what some of the coaches have gone through, like in the season, when obviously the furnace is really hot and burning, and obviously, Simo's end up getting singed now, and I said it is tough, and I know what it's like on the family. I still talk to people about the fact, after we decided to pack up, sell the home and move to Melbourne, that's what the family decided for the best thing for our kids. And I remember I spent 7 days. We drove the Volvos, you fellas, from Gold Coast to Melbourne. And it took us 7 days. We took it nice and easy. We drove down. I had my son, Jesse, in the car. He was 13 at that stage. And I learned more about him, quite sadly, in 7 days than I had done in the last 6 years up on the Gold Coast. And it sort of hit me about the impact it has on your family, and it was really quite sad. And as I said, I was there for him physically up there. We'd play tennis and we'd play cricket in the carport, we'd have a kick of the footy and all that sort of stuff. I was always there physically for him, but mentally I know myself, there was times clearly I was, but there was a lot of the times where I was there physically for him and just not mentally attuned to what his needs were. And it takes a big toll on the family and obviously the coach himself. And I'm sure Simo's feeling a bit of that now. You lose that time. I think the work-life balance has certainly got better in the AFL with time off, and certainly for the players. I still think the coaching fraternity is still a bit behind on all that sort of stuff, because you are, as a senior coach, you are, I think Pikey said in his press conference, that you are the main person, and so you feel obliged, not feel obliged, you just want to stamp your imprimatur on the group and get them up to playing as best football as you possibly can.
Guy McKenna, our guest. Yeah, Bluey, during the peak times of Adam Simpson's time at West Coast, he was so family conscious. I remember the day that Josh Kennedy dressed up in Frozen, and all the kids were dressed up in their favourite characters, and all their dads were dressed up in their characters, and they did it inside at the footy club.
Bring your kids to work.
Bring your kids to work. They were always at the footy club. COVID hit, and they were. And I know every football club is the same, but I think West Coast were more attached and had more kids than any other team going around by a mile. And I reckon that took the wind out of the sails, the whole COVID, and they never really recovered. I just want to ask you a question in regards to player unrest. So in the last couple of weeks, there's been reports of text messages, and there is a senior player who's come across my desk at who it is, and I'm talking senior player, right, who was leading the charge a little bit of wanting a change.
Sorry, mate, can I jump in? If it's been reported that three players text messages got out, mate, I would have re-signed him. If it was only three players, my God.
I mean,
seriously.
Yeah.
Oh, mate, there's normally 10 or 15 players that are either in one week and out the next. They're the ones that generally start causing fire and some friction, and because they're the ones that, as a coach, you don't fully trust, if you know what I mean. Nothing about them being distrustful. It's just they're not senior players yet, whereas there's the first sort of 10 to 15 of the first pick, they're sort of low-maintenance players. You just pick them because you know they're going to produce. They might produce an 8, they might go down to a 6, but they're very rarely going to go below a 5, whereas some players are very, because they're young kids. One thing I did learn at Gold Coast, young kids and young teams will be consistently inconsistent, so it's trying to manage that. They don't see that. They just think they're performing they're performing as best they are, but it's just not up to that level. So, yeah, look, ultimately, mate, that would happen at every club. It's just the fact that it gets out. That's the sad thing, unfortunately. I'm sure, there'd be disgruntled players at Sydney right now. Why? Because they can't crack it into a potential premiership team. But you don't hear about that, of course, because no one's really digging the dirt, and no one really wants to sort of set the dominoes in motion, if you know what I mean.
Any journalist across the country could say, I've seen text messages from pick a club that players are disgruntled. We said this when it first came out, it was just, there's always going to be players who aren't wrapped with the coach, and they're playing waffle at the moment.
From your vantage point, do you think Adam Simpson, it sounded like he said, I used the quote, we love Perth, we love everything it's given us, but I love footy too. It just gives it, I just got a feeling he'll freshen up and get back in somewhere. Do you think he can coach somewhere else as a senior coach?
Oh, yeah, look, I don't, well, once you've sort of been burnt or singed, if you know what I mean, I think he would be, look, he's a premiership coach. That's a little bit different, certainly to my side of things. He probably could walk in and go straight into a senior coach. He'd want to do that, within the next couple of years. But I think, from what I know of Simo from afar, I think he would, he has no ego about him, so he'd happily go in as a senior assistant somewhere else and help a young developing coach, or go in and sit alongside. You might go back to, or you might even end up at North Melbourne with Clarko. Who knows? It's his old club. They're probably ready to start the rise, and it might be a chapter in his book, because I still remember, and this is a tough thing for coaches, of course, is, when they take over. I remember Mick Malthouse saying that when I first joined him at Collingwood. He said, you never coach the side until you've coached the side in the bottom 4, because you have to bite, scratch, and you go into a boxing match with almost one arm tied behind your back, because you just don't have these levers to pull. But, when you're at a good side, you got 4 or 5, 6, 8, 10 players you can throw at the opposition. And when you're in a young developing side, like Simo's got now with West Coast, Oscar Allen's just come back. He's obviously club captain, a very good player. Harley Reid, but he's still a kid. You can't expect games to be won on the back of this young fella. In time that he will, but he's like a Jager O'Meara and a David Swallow for us back at Gold Coast early days. But it takes time for these kids to fully develop from kids into men. Some do it really quick, and as those two boys mentioned, and Harley Reid's going to do it quicker than normal. But As Malcolm Blight once told us at the Gold Coast, mate, it's the 80-20 rule applies. 80% of the kids drafted will take 3 or 4 years. I mean, we've just been on radio talking about Max King and comparing him to Tom Hawkins, and I think Tom Hawkins, obviously he's an absolute champion and superstar, but it took him 5 years to fully develop into the player he was. And they're all jumping on Max King, and I said, he's just hit his 5th year, and he's actually kicked 159 goals in his first 5 years compared to Tom Hawkins, who's kicked 109. Now, I'm not going to say he's going to go on and play 300 games and kick over 1,000 goals or anything like that, but just give him some time, It takes time.
So with the playing list, put your club hat on now, Blue. With the playing list where it's at right now, is it a matter of which lever do you think the club should pull? Do they go to an untried? Do they go to a Dean Cox who's been away from the club for a long time now and got a lot of IP, and Ash Hansen, Jamie Graham? They're just a few names that have been thrown up.
Yeah.
Or do they go a senior coach who's been there, done that, been in the system for a long time and is a proven developer? New coach, tried coach?
Yeah, good question, Scotty. I mean, the tried coach, as long as he's been down the bottom, if you know what I mean, and sampled that, because again, look, I still think, like, even, not, pat myself on the back to say here, because I've been to a few of the West Coast functions and supporters have been up and about thinking about this year and how good it's going to be, and I'm sitting there going, I'm hosing them down, going, just wait on, hang on. The senior players they made the call 2 years ago. They got rid of some. The ones they kept, unfortunately, they kept the right ones, I think, in a playing point of view, but unfortunately they all broke down. So they had no senior players, so it was a bad year. So then they're going to carry that legacy into this year and then lose some more players. And I think the players that, Hurn and some of those players that retired, I mean, they finished in their top 10. Like, you would have had to twist their arm again to go around again. But unfortunately, they've retired and there's just left too few to carry, a team full of kids. And been there, done that, I know what it's like. So I always thought that this year was going to be worse than last year. And at this stage, it's sort of tracking that way. So right now you go, what do I need to get out of the season? And so there's things to be done there. But to answer your question about the coach, I mean, the names you mentioned are really good. I mean, Dean Cox has spent 10 years in Sydney. So one thing I do hear with Pikey speak about, and it's very much himself as a person as well as his values, and he's lived that, the Sydney Swans Bloods culture. And he knows what that's like. And the good thing for Coxie, I suppose, he's been there. Now, in that time, I think Sydney have dropped to, I think they won 7 games in one of the seasons, I think, when Coxie's there. But most of the time, but they still, over every other year, I reckon they played finals. So he sort of understands what success and how to build, and certainly with Sydney over the last 5 years especially, how to build a young side up into a premiership contender.
Brilliant stuff, Bluey. A lot of text coming through. Your passion, your insight, your empathy, you can still hear it in your voice for the West Coast Eagles. So, in simple terms, what will the next few days be like for Adam Simpson, in your opinion?
No doubt he'll be around the family, hugging and kissing and making up for the last, 11 or 12 years he's been coaching. But, I think he'll sit back. I think you're right. I think he'll have some time off, a bit like Damien Hardwick did. Get the cigar out and, reflect. Well, it's funny, you never really, I still haven't really reflected too much on the, even our playing days. I know we're back to the 94 and all that sort of stuff, but certainly your coaching, it's you just don't have time to sort of sit and reflect. But if he does have some time, have a break, recharge, refresh, and then really, I did the right thing, hopefully by my wife at the time in Chick, just to turn around and say, okay, what do you want to do now? I think the next thing we have to do is sort out the family and the kids, what's most important. And Jesse was moving into high school, so we decided for his opportunity was to go to Melbourne. And I dare say Simo will turn around to his wife and say, what do we need to do? I think he said at the press conference he's got 3 kids that have finished school. He might have one
still
to
go.
So, so I think that will determine a fair bit, I would think. And then after that, mate, he'll sail off to the sunset. And if there's an opportunity in football, wherever that is, I'm sure he'll take it up.
It's a fine line between being a coach and not being a coach. And we've got to remember, and I never say this publicly because I don't publicly stick up for Blue, but he was a shoulder injury away from playing finals in that year. And then Gary Ablett goes down and Gold Coast miss out. And that's a simple fact that it's a very, very fine line. He wasn't a bad coach, I don't think.
He's a very good coach. He's an even better basketballer. Get on here, Bluey. Appreciate your time.
Average bloke, but good coach in basketball.
Yeah.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks, fellas.
Good on you. Love the passion from Gold Guy McKenna, who's been there, done that. Let's take a break and come back. A lot of texts coming through as well. Where to now for the West Coast Eagles? We'll continue. Fremantle fans, we will be talking to a Hawthorn player this morning, Cam McKenzie, who you'll come up against in Tassie on the weekend ahead of your huge game with the Hawks. But alrighty, just wanted to make mention of this. I want to play. We're going to get Chris Waterman's about to join us. I just want to talk about Don Pike. Had this to say. We're going to go to a grab that Don Pike talks about what the footy club does now in regards to the situation and how they speed up looking for a new coach. We were in this studio in August last year and we had a conversation about Dean Cox's situation.
Yes.
So we went a little bit harder than most at the time. This was August last year. And then are we going to play Don Pike's reaction to the search and how club situation changes? I think they fit hand in glove. I got massive mail yesterday that Dean Cox is absolutely going to get the job if West Coast part company. But Dean Cox has told people that he does not want to be spoken to about taking the job until Adam Simpson's future is decided. He doesn't want to cut his nose off to spite his face, to put his hand up and go, yeah, I'll come, but all of a sudden he doesn't get it, and now he's indicated to Sydney that he wants out.
Yeah,
he
that's
needs,
smart play.
He needs to sit there and wait because he's been anointed as the next in charge of Sydney if John Longmire finishes up in 2 years, and he's happy to stay in Sydney. He loves Sydney. His family's happy there. He's happy there. He's got some interest in Sydney. But the bottom line is, if West Coast, my mail was very hot yesterday, that if West Coast decide to keep Adam Simpson, nothing changes. Dean Cox hasn't put his hand up to take the gig. He stays at Sydney and hopefully gets that gig. But if they clear the decks at West Coast,
he'll come.
He said, pick up the phone and ring him.
When was that? August last year?
August last year.
Oh, wow. You're on. You know what? And I just went, yeah, it's a good point, and I understand, and well played by Coxie. August. Yeah, people jumping on board.
Dean Cox.
I think it's really, and it shows a lot of, you talk about values and that sort of stuff. It
Correct.
shows a lot about Coxie straight away.
Didn't want to walk over to Sydney.
Well, you know, disrespectful. You guys get yourselves sorted out, and then we'll have a chat. If there's a position available, whenever that time is, I'll discuss it. If it's right for me, then let's have a crack.
So 11 months later.
Really well handled.
Yeah, agree.
Shows a lot about the man. Geez, he's come a long way, Coxie. I always flip straight back to his first pre-season, his first days at the footy club. And these guys are going to be here a month before he quits.
As we go to the break with Don Pike's reaction, basically
brilliant.
Covering this situation off.
Yeah, well, we'll start that process now. I mean, I think I've always been very strong on the basis that you deal with your situation until your situation changes. And clearly today our situation changes, so we're in the market for a new coach, and that process will start now. And we'll put together a list of people to approach and start talking to about leading the club going forward.
Handled himself beautifully yesterday, did Adam Simpson, the outgoing coach of the West Coast Eagles. No decision has been made whether he's going to coach the team in the last game. Chris Waterman, of course, Eagles champion, father of Jake, talent, ID and management at Inside 50 Management and coach of the Wembley Amateurs. Muddy, appreciate your time. Big day for the footy club, big day for your son.
Yeah, it was. Pretty big day, not unexpected though, so it was just a matter of time, I thought.
They've never done it before, Curl, in season sacking a coach, but I think you're right, spot on the money. It was, I think it was the only option going forward, unfortunately.
Well, what they have done, they put themselves in a good position where, regardless of any other club changes a coach, it looks like it may be at the end of the year. I don't know who that is, and I've got no idea, but West Coast have the market to themselves now. They've got every option available right around the country, regardless of an untried assistant or any other current coach, so they get to go through the market and choose very carefully who the next coach is.
Do you reckon, we were talking to Bluey just before, and we were talking about, I think it's been probably given too much time, but I'm going to go over it again, is the text messages about players being disgruntled. That happens at every club and all the time, but from your understanding, and I'm not asking you to throw Jake under the bus, I'm not sure you even discuss it at all, but do you think there is that much unrest amongst the playing group and how much the players had a say in this decision, or is it purely results driven?
It's results driven. No, I just think that might have been a little bit of a can of worms, and yeah, you're right, that happens everywhere, and not just in football clubs either, Scotty, so it's text messages are part of communication right around the world. So one's got into the wrong hands and a story's been made out of it, and it may not be someone that's totally disgruntled, just had a bad day. Who knows? But it's grown legs. No, I never probe Jake. I don't want to put him in that position. So, and he's not that type of person that goes around the club looking for trouble or finding out what's going on. He keeps to himself. In fact, he didn't train yesterday, and he wandered upstairs and found Simo in the room all by himself. So he said he sat and spoke to him for 20 minutes about life and footy and had a really good chat with him. He's actually got on with him very well the whole time he's been there. And, you know, even like every player has questioned why he's been dropped a few times and reasons for, but said over the whole he's got on pretty well with him.
That's my next question to you, Muddy, and I appreciate you coming on the show. And it's not just about Jake. We're going to talk about holistically the West Coast Eagles and you as a former club champ as well. Where to now for the footy club? But just in regards to Jake's development, I mean, this amazing breakout season that he's had, and probably a lot of tough love from Adam Simpson over the journey and probably not finding a spot. What do you put that down to? And has Simo backed him in more this year that he's reaping the benefits?
The short answer is Josh Kennedy. He was there until 2 years ago. Then Jake started to find his feet last year and unfortunately got crook. And by necessity, he had to start firing this year because there was no Oscar Allen either. So things just fell into place. He's always had the talent, just needed the opportunity and the right environment with a bit of a new team coming through. So, yeah, there has been a lot of tough love, but that's what coaches do. They, you know, keep you on your toes the whole time and try and force you to get better at every inch of your game. So, but over the journey, he's never had a problem with Simo in general, and he's never ever said that anyone at the club never has had so, or never thrown anyone else under the bus. But as I said, I've never asked him those questions. It's not for me to know, even though I'm his father, but I don't really want to put him in that position.
I asked Bluey the question, mate. New untried coach or proven senior coach who's been in a chair for a while? What rein would you pull at West Coast right now?
I'm not fussed, to be honest, Camo. I just think, as I said before, they've got the market to themselves. Go through every candidate and find out who they think's the best fit for a squad that's about to start growing. I think everyone says it's going to be a tough job. I'm not sure it's going to be that tough, to be honest. They just need to get their H&C right and get everyone up and firing. And, you know, young Hewitt's not going to fire a shot this year, and sadly he's been put out for the rest of the year. So you don't know what you've really got just there. Harley got to get another pre-season under his belt, and a few other guys are going to get some more footy of the Liam Ryans, and hopefully Dom can get going again. You've got McGovern, Barras, Reid, Jake, Oscar, Marich. There's a fair bit there to work with. I just think they just need to get everyone fit and healthy and get the next two drafts right, and they can be moving pretty quick.
How much do you reckon needs to change culture-wise? So there's been a lot of talk about the Eagles' culture over, you know, these down years, and that the players, you know, the tail's almost wagging the dog. I'm an outsider, mate, so I don't speak to the players about these sorts of things whenever I see any of them. But that talk hasn't gone away. Do you think that someone needs to come in and reset the place and put a harder edge on it? Because there hasn't been an edge to the Eagles. And an edge is a pretty all-encompassing sort of description, but there has been an edge to the Eagles for a number of years now.
Oh, you're right. No, you only have to look at Essendon, what Brad Scott's done. That was sitting there at Essendon for probably the last 15 years, and he walked in and changed it pretty quickly. I think the next person needs to understand that, and I think the COVID period really hurt the club, and they were terrible through that phase and didn't come out of it that well. Was probably the worst club performing in that time and haven't recovered from it. So it just needed that new voice. And I probably said the last 48 hours, if anything, was I had no problem with the board backing him last year. They gave him the extension. I just thought the extension wasn't warranted 3 years ago. I thought they made a mistake there. It was just the cracks were starting to appear, and I thought they needed to wait till the end of the contract. And had they done that, they would have seen through 2022 that his time was up. But it's gone on for an extra 2 years, so be it. But I think they just need a new voice, a new figurehead that can just come in and put his own stamp on it. I think you'll see that culture reset and move forward pretty quickly, providing they get the right person.
Solid stuff from you, Muddy, this morning. Fantastic, great insight, and not just as a father of one of the current day players, but your knowledge is still unsurpassed, mate. We appreciate your honesty.
Champion of the club. Do you reckon there's any text messages going around Wembley at the moment amongst the playing group?
Oh, trust me, trust me, trust me. Oh, trust me, Mudwell.
Some blokes in the Magoos.
What's for brekkie this morning, Camo?
I just had a banana, mate. That's all.
Oh, that's all right. 4 a.m. in the gym, were you?
Yeah. It's standard, normal morning, mate.
You could do a lot worse than standing in the goal square.
Well, I think he's asking. I think he's asking the question in a roundabout way. Let's talk.
Good on you, mate. Appreciate it. Good on you. There's Muddy Waterman, Chris Waterman. There's some honest feedback and great insight. Jake Waterman just saw the coach sitting quietly in the room on his own and reflecting, and they sat down and chatted for 20 minutes. I love that.
Simo wanted some alone time. Jake said, nah, we're chatting. I like it, though. It's a relationship. And
after 7 o'clock, Fremantle Dockers fans will be chatting with Cam McKenzie, who plays with the Hawks ahead of their big game. And, of course, we'll continue. Shannon Hearn will join us.
How good was 18? It was just it was a fantastic moment in time for us. I know you don't want to be your identity connected to premierships, but our players, what they went through that year, the journey they were on, to lose a few players and really feel for Andrew Gaff and Shep and Eric McKenzie and Nick Nat, those guys who were a big part of that year. But to see the guys win a premiership and our supporters, it was such a good time. So I can't wait for the 10-year reunion.
He spoke so glowingly about his time at the West Coast Eagles, and of course that is being the pinnacle, winning the flag in 2018. And he held the premiership couple off with our next guest, Shannon Hearn, who joins us to reflect on Adam Simpson's time at the footy club and possibly that news that came through yesterday that he is to coach no more. Shannon, appreciate your time. You're on the farm, they tell us, in South Australia.
Yeah, g'day Tim, Scott. Yep, back in South Australia, just helping out doing a bit of land tailing at the moment, so it's been good.
What was your vibe yesterday when the news came through that the club and Adam had reached a mutual decision to part company?
Yeah, well, it's been no secret, obviously, the last year and a half. The club's been under pressure and playing group and the coaching group and Simo, so I wouldn't say it's so much as a surprise, but it's just one of those things that I think there was going to be a decision coming along the time, whether it's continue going on or look for a new path. But one of the things I think is, the last year and a half shouldn't be looked at so much as his coaching, because his first 7 or 8 years, apart from the first year's finals, grand finals, premiership. So he's been a fantastic coach. It just hasn't worked out well for him, playing group in the club, the last 3 years, how we would have, liked it to have gone.
But it's obviously all the conversations about Simo and whether he should go or shouldn't have gone and his tenure. From a player's point of view, how much responsibility do the players need to take and how do they respond to this? Well, the coach is gone, so at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. But does that sit amongst them and say, hey, this is our fault too and we need to do something?
Yeah, well, you've been around footy long enough and footy clubs and how it works, and it's never just one person or one department's fault or problem. I do think as a playing group, it's always, you're out there playing, you need to take ownership of your own performance and how you prepare and playing well as a team. And then the club and the coaches are there to help facilitate that. And that's the thing, I think Simo has been fantastic in that journey, and in the last 3 years, it's probably been a younger list. Some of the senior players haven't been able to play as well, so the educating's still been there, but it's just coming from a bit further back, so it didn't show on the footy field as much. But certainly, I always think as a player, it was always going out there to perform as best you can. That's for for the club and for the coach. So it's a whole. When I say it's a whole club thing, it's a coaching trying to get better, players trying to get better, and that's what I believe has been happening this year. Started well, and then the last few weeks just fell off a little bit.
Do you think there needs to be a culture change starting with the playing group and attitudes from the playing group, or do you think that's already started and it's in good nick at the moment?
Well, I'm not there anymore, Scott. But I think yeah, my the way I was always brought up, and the belief is always, when I say it's a team effort, I include the coaching department, the whole fitness side in that, and the players. So it's not necessarily a whole culture thing, but I think it is certainly one of those things where you need to each week prepare well. You need to make sure you're looking after yourself and giving yourself the best, I suppose, the best chances to be able to play well and fulfil your role game day. So each player can look at that themselves, whether they think they're doing it or they could do better. And that'll be something that the club, like I know last year when I was still there, the club was working towards doing, which I think was good, and that'll always be ongoing going forward.
Shannon Hearn, our guest, Premiership winning captain, alongside Adam Simpson, the Premiership winning coach. Shannon, just in regards to the Premiership team, and we just heard Adam there and the joy that 2018 brought him and the club and all the fans, which is part and parcel of winning a flag. Do you think he has been too loyal to a lot of those Premiership winning players? Do you think, and again, not saying you're not there now, so it's different, but at selection, do you think he's always given the Premiership players just a little bit more rope than others?
Yeah, well, that's the thing when you're, coaching. Sometimes it's either too loyal or you're not loyal enough. So, again, from my point of view, I think that period of 2015 to 19 was fantastic. The coaching group that we had, but Simo, the way he implemented game plans, because our list changed a fair bit over that 5-year period. It just would have been nice if we'd snatched another one there or made another grand final. But you go with what players have done, I think, a little bit in their time for you. I think you always keep backing the players in and you keep working with them and you keep getting them to make sure they keep improving. Certainly if there's a point where there's, when I say don't say not improving, but if there's a point where it's just the same, well, you've got to make a decision. But Simo was having those conversations, as was the club, as was the playing group. So I wouldn't say he's been too loyal. I think he's had it just about right.
Mate, the US elections are on. It's all about endorsements. I want a former Premiership captain winning endorsement from you. Who would you, if you got to pick someone now, without any interviews or anything like that, you've got to endorse a new coach. You know, you've got big sway down at the footy club, Bunga. Who are you endorsing?
Well, both you guys could coach. Put your hand up, give it a go.
Oh, well, Goss has tried that, and his approach probably wouldn't go down well with the playing group right now. They're a little thin-skinned for Goss's approach.
Yeah, right. Well, look, I think, I know a few names have been thrown around a little bit, and there seems to be some quite good potential coaches out there. I've been fortunate, like people have spoken about it, with the West Coast connection. I was fortunate to have a few years with Ash Hansen, who's been at the Bulldogs and now Carlton. Obviously, Dean Cox gets thrown around. He was fantastic for the playing group when I was there, doing a great job in Sydney. But also Jamie Graham, I think he was 6 years at the club, 7 years at the club as a coach. So those three coaches I can comment on, and I think they would all be fantastic. But I certainly know there's other coaches out there as well that have done quite a good job through their period of time in the AFL. So Coxie is always one that gets thrown around, and will always get thrown around as being probably the main candidate, but that's what the club and the board will decide. They'll do all the interviews and see how it all works out and what the fit that they want. What
do you want as a former Premiership or as a Premiership captain of the football club? What do you want to see in the next 7 weeks?
Well, a few more wins would be obviously nice. I think the playing group and the club have shown where they're aiming to go and some of the direction that they want to get to, and that still, end of the day, gets shown up on the field. Like, that's where the results are. But I think behind the scenes, they would be trying to implement a few different like fitness that they've been doing last year with a new fitness coach. Some of the high performance. They would be implementing some new structures on skills, decision-making, game plan. And then I think in the last 7 weeks, people talk about it, but I think it's just making sure we can try to play as a team, they can play as a team, be consistent over 4 quarters, and probably when I say go play with some confidence, is sometimes when there's a change of a coach, it happens everywhere and across the league. Sometimes there can just be that freedom, and the game just gets taken on. So I think that'll probably play out over the next 7 weeks, and it'd be great if there's a few more wins in there along the way.
Last one for you before we let you go, and we appreciate your time, Shannon. Just the offer, albeit very clunky, yesterday to coach his last game this week, which would tie him for the most games coached, second most games coached alongside Mick Malthouse, of course, who's a club legend, dual premiership winning coach. Do you, again, you're not going to answer for Adam, as a player, if you're in that group right now and Adam is making a decision to coach one more time, would you like that, or do you think it's time to cut the cord?
I think I'd lean towards liking it. I don't think it would be an issue either way, and I know that's lots of people start sitting on the fence. So I think I'd like him to coach one more game, but it is up to him whether he feels like he'd want to or have the energy. But I think certainly the players and fans in the club would love to be able to, when I say send him off, acknowledge his time at the club. As I said before, 11 years, all those final series, 7 years or 6 years in a row. And as I said, he was fantastic. And through that 14 when he first came in, teaching a different style of play where the game was going, we made a grand final in 15. Just should have done something else there in 16 and 17, won one in 18, and just 19 didn't work out. So, from my point of view, Simo's just been a fantastic coach and helped me understand about the game. So I think people would like to see him, coach one more time, but that'll be up to him and see what he wants to do.
Appreciate your time. So what are you doing?
He's lamb-tailing.
What's that mean?
Well, he's making sure the lambs will be healthy going forward for anyone who gets a bit scared about that sort of stuff.
Well said. Come on.
Thank you.
Okay. You still live here? You still West Australian?
Still Western Australian. Yep. Dual citizenship. So go back to a couple of times.
Dual passports.
Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks very much, guys.
Shannon Hearn, Premiership captain.
Nathan Buckley did it at Collingwood, didn't he? He said, I'll take one more game. And I think they played Melbourne at the SCG during COVID, and they had a big win. It was a good way to finish. But what would you do?
I wouldn't. I mean, I want him to because I like him.
Yeah.
But I don't see any benefit.
But we talked, and I remember talking to Mark Harvey about this.
Do you think you'll get a guard of honour?
Oh, no. No. You cannot have a guard of honour for someone who's effectively been sacked. I know it was a mutual decision, and Simo's big enough to say, look, time's right.
Who do you think the lifters will be? Who won't they be?
Who won't they be? Anyone in the stands who's watching?
No.
Don't you ask me to? No, because that'll start rumours and stuff.
No.
I have no idea who likes him and who doesn't like him.
I definitely know who wouldn't be lifting.
Who won't lift him then, guys? Come on then. Who won't lift him? Start something. Who won't lift him? Would the forwards lift him?
Yep.
Would the midfield lift him?
Some.
Would the backline lift him?
If I was the backline, I'd think very hard. The way the backline's going at times.
They're too exhausted.
They'd need four blokes to lift him.
Anyway. So would you do it? I remember speaking to Mark Harvey, and he was big on the fact that we got to treat coaches better, especially on the way out and that sort of thing. And I'd like him to, whether he feels like it. I'd love him to go there and just see him pre-game and go, hey, just let's have some fun, boys. Let's go out with a bang and. But
mate, you can't just rock up. He's got to do the midweek coaching stuff. Have you seen what it's like outside?
Yeah. It's a bit wet. He's from Melbourne, mate.
Pep McGrove, mate. He won't be leaving the castle.
I'd love to see him do it, but it's completely his call and understand either way.
7:16. Don't forget.
So who won't lift him?
Cam McKenzie's going to join us from the Hawthorn Football Club. They take on the Dockers Saturday down at UTAS Stadium. Don't forget, grab 24 chicken McNuggets for $9.95.
Would you need big blokes to lift him?
Get more for your money at Macca's.
Who won't do it? Come on.
Are you trying to embarrass me?
No, I'm not trying to embarrass you. I'm trying to get you to break another story.
17 away from 8 o'clock, after 8 o'clock, Mark Duffield. Mornings with Mark Duffield. If you want to call, 13 12 55 or 0487 367 Plenty of interaction with our listeners this morning. Haven't got to a lot of him because it's been a busy show.
Yeah, you going to dig into Elijah Hewitt at all today, Duff, or are we still focused?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So the injury is an injury which will usually resolve itself. A lot of people yesterday were asking the question, why didn't they get this surgery done earlier?
So they misdiagnosed it early. That's the story that hasn't been discussed. They misdiagnosed him early.
But he's carried the injury through his junior footy. Like, he had bad feet in his top age under 18s years. Then he got through last year and he was able to play quite a bit of footy and manage it, and then it blew up over summer. And
back this week. He was back.
They have to make a decision in those situations as to whether they do surgery. And the thing that a lot of people don't understand, and you'd know this, Scott, is surgery is always the last resort. You try and let it resolve itself, because there's all sorts of complications that can happen with surgery, isn't there? There's infections and those sorts of things. So they try not to do it unless they have to. But unfortunately with him, now there's been another setback and it's going to take out his season.
Okay, in simple terms, West Coast the next 7 weeks, and I know you were very big on your show yesterday talking about playing some of the kids, and you named them, and I think that's important. What about some of the mid-range to experienced players? Are we going to see, do you think Sheed, Gaff and Darling will be on the list next year?
I think, Gaff won't be. I'd be staggered if Andrew Gaff is still there. Sheed and Darling have contracts, but there probably needs to be a conversation with both of them. If you're determined to see out your contract, are you prepared to play games in the waffle and be a leader to the young players there?
Darling's still having an impact. It would be interesting to see, without Darling, the effect that it has on Waterman and Allen. Yeah, he's not kicking bags of goals or taking heaps of marks, but he's having an impact. But he's not the future. I understand that.
I keep looking at their forward line though, Scotty, and every other good club has these 2, 3 or 4 pressure forwards, the fierce tackling, the frenetic pressure players that affect the delivery of the ball of the opposition from their defensive 50. 3 teams in a row now have flat out walked through West Coast's team defence, and that starts with the amount of pressure you either do or don't get on inside your attacking 50. And the first couple of weeks, they were tall. And obviously Jack is an extra tall, and not just an extra tall, but a 32-year-old extra tall. I think they do need to find some players, even if they have to manufacture them, someone who will be that player, who will, like Fremantle had to turn Bailey Banfield into one of them. And West Coast may have to turn a couple of their players into one of them, because that is how the game is played now. I
think Tom Cole's played at the wrong end of the ground. I don't think Tom Cole is a very good defender. I think Tom Cole is would be a very good negative
defensive
pressure forward. Absolutely. I think Tom gets turned around easy. But to be honest, to Tom's defence, he's a part of a back line gets caught out because of the midfield lack of pressure and the forward 50 lack of pressure. I want to see Tom go the other end and he be a bit like what you're talking about.
I'll ask a question to both of you. If you're Jared Schofield right now, because if he has aspirations to be a senior coach, and if interim coaches, being an interim coach can burn that aspiration pretty quickly, does he say, I'm going to do the right thing by the football club and play everyone I can possibly play and see who we've got on our list?
I think if you're Jared Schofield, you go to Don Pike and you say, what are my KPIs for the next 7 weeks? What do you need to see? And by the way, I think we should be doing this, this and this and this. So introduce part of yourself, but fulfil the obligations that the club needs, and see if you can impress them. Being a coach is about so many things, isn't it? It's about your ability to manage people now as much as anything, because the coach is the bloke in charge of a massive team of people, and he's got to coordinate all that and organise all that and make sure he's getting value and bang for buck out of every single section of that. So Jared Schofield has been in charge of a waffle team. He's done that successfully. He's been a senior assistant coach at 2 AFL clubs now. So there's no reason why he shouldn't be an applicant for the senior coaching position. He wouldn't be my favourite, but there's no reason why he shouldn't be an applicant.
It could have big ramifications on the waffle too, because if he starts bringing in all these young kids and starts sending back hardened, seasoned AFL players, and whether they're good or bad players, but they'll be good for the waffle. West Coast waffle could finish with an absolute bang and mess up the 8 or mess up the 5, sorry.
We saw Isaac Henney's suspension stand, and you guys probably agree on that. I've sort of thought it was clumsy but not deliberate, but you both said contact to the head. Let's move it forward. Brownlow medalist Patrick Cripps wants the AFL to review the awards eligibility rules at the end of the season.
Agreed. I think it's so easy to be suspended nowadays.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And even, like, my initial view on the Heaney one was, okay, it's contact to the head, it has to be a week, because that's just where we have to get to. But then you watch Zirk Thatcher do pretty much the same thing, and he's not cited. And you sort of think, well, okay, it is very marginal. It's very marginal.
And you were very big on saying that, and we sort of liked it. I don't say don't condone it, but we liked the passion of Damien Hardwick for dropping the F-bomb. You were very critical in your show.
If I'm a 19-year-old defender and he's telling me you are going to stand in front of Josh Tracy, and if he comes out flat knacker on the lead and sticks his knee through your rib cage, you are going to stand your ground, I'd be very tempted to turn around and say, well, you can't even get through a press conference without swearing, mate.
You serious?
You want me to control my fears and screw my guts up and do this because the team needs me to do that, and you can't get through a press conference without swearing. Like, grow up.
You felt he should have been fined.
Yeah, please explain and fine. And also, a talking to from the president. I said, mate, there's 8-year-olds out there watching this press conference. How about you tidy it up? And the other thing that people make the mistake, and Goss, you'd appreciate this. Remember when we were at the West Australian? Don't use a big word where a little word will do.
Yep.
And unless it's absolutely necessary, don't use the word at all. Damien thought he was making it more powerful by grow the F up. No. We as a club need to grow up.
Yep.
It's just as powerful. It sends the same message, and you're not just letting yourself down by dropping the F-bomb.
You old fuddy-duddies.
Mate, I'm the son of a shearer. I know. I can swear better than you. Don't worry about that.
Well, there's a show.
Fremantle go to Tassie. It's huge.
Massive
it is
game.
huge. It is huge now, and they're right. They're in that. They could finish 8th or they could finish top 2, couldn't they? Right now.
Yeah, they're on the climb. What I would say about Fremantle is that I've never been more optimistic about a Fremantle list. Now, I don't know what that means this year. I think they need to play finals this year and hopefully host a final and hopefully win a final. Maybe scramble into the 3rd or 4th positions, and then, from there, it's just one big performance in one qualifying final and suddenly you are in it up to your eyeballs. So all that can happen this year. But what I like about this is this list, apart from O'Meara, Fife and Walters, who are either at their peak or past their peak, this is all upside. This is all upside. Everywhere you look in this Fremantle team, it's upside and there's growth. It's quite exciting.
Who do you think is closest to a flag?
I'm not even going there. Mate, they're so hard to win. Like, Ross Lyons Fremantle.
That's my point.
Won so many games and did so much right between 2012 and 2015. They didn't win one. So,
listen,
Hutchie made a bizarre comment a while ago saying that Gold Coast were closer to a flag than Fremantle. Well, he may eventually be proven right. If Freo can't grab one, they're really hard to win. But you know what? As a guy who leans Fremantle way, I just want to see them put themselves there over an 8-year period.
Yep.
And then the odds are you win one. But if you don't, you've been there for an 8-year period.
Yep.
Okay.
And there's great value in that.
Quick fire questions for you, Mark. No time to ramble here. And you. I'll throw you in. Okay. Here's a question I'm going to ask you. And we've gone over the ground. We'll go again. Will Adam Simpson coach this week? Scott?
I don't think he will. I'd love him to, but I don't think he will.
I hope he doesn't.
Who will be the next coach of the West Coast Eagles? Scott?
Dean Cox.
Dean Cox.
How many games will the West Coast Eagles win in the next 7?
1.
2. I don't know which ones.
I just grabbed it.
Will Adam Simpson coach an AFL team senior position again?
Yeah, I reckon he will.
No.
I don't think his legacy's been tarnished. I don't think its coaching record's been tarnished from here anyway, because we know exactly what's gone on in the last 2 years. This year hasn't been great for him.
Adam Simpson's been a great coach. That premiership is one of the great premierships. That is the benchmark premiership for a non-Victorian club, everything they did that year. But the brand damage over the last 3 years has been extreme. Yeah.